John from Ripewave Xpress with Denon's latest AV receiver, the AVR-6800H. This $3,500 processor has fit into their lineup with this new release just below the 8500HA and the A1H, and just above the X4800H. And we went over this in the prior video, but today I want to focus in on a section of the Ripewave video we just launched that goes over the setup and the configuration in the Odyssey, but focus in on the planning that you have to go through this. Now, when you have this unit, you have 17 channels of processing. That's 13 speaker channels, 4 subwoofer channels, and of the 13 channels it can process, it has 11 internal amplifiers that it can use to power it. The last 2 have to be powered externally. Of course, you can use as many external amplifiers as you would like. And when you go to configure this, as you make choices, and there's trade-offs on the arrangement. So you can do a 7.4.6 configuration where you've got 3 rows of heights, or you can do a 9.4.4 configuration where you're using front wide speakers and only 2 rows of heights. And we'll talk about the options here. If you're not selecting front wides, you have a choice of 1 row of ceiling speakers, 2 rows of ceiling speakers. So on the 5 speaker configurations, those are your Aural 3D configurations. You're choosing, always you've got 2 rows of height speakers, 1 in the front, 1 in the rear. And then for that 5th element, is that going to be a front center speaker or a top surround speaker? Now, if you set it to 6 speakers, not only do you have that front and rear heights, but you can have both the top surround voice of God channel and the center height channel simultaneously. So able to do 6 immersive channels with this unit, provided you turn off your front wide speakers. Now, if you want to switch back and forth, you have up to 2 speaker presets with these Denon model. So you could have one that has the front wides enabled, but you only got 2 rows of immersive channels, 1 in the front, 1 in the rear. And then if you turn off those front wides, now you can do your Aural 3D with either 5 or 6 speakers. So those options are there. And we put this chart together. We go through this chart in the full video. What we've done in the chart is articulate that the green are your ceiling speakers. These, what Denon calls your top speakers. We show it as a green circle. Usually your ceiling speakers are round. The purple, these are speakers that you mount high on the wall. And these are labeled as height channels within Denon. So we do a purple or a purple square because they're usually more rectangular. And then the Dolby surround speakers. These are the reflective speakers we show as a red triangle in this chart. If you're selecting the different speaker counts and you're doing your configuration, there are some times when you can't do a ceiling speaker and sometimes you can't do a height speaker. So I'll give you a couple of examples. So if you set up for 2 rows with 4 speakers, you're not able to do a height speaker in a middle row, but you can do it on the front row and you can do it on your rear heights. So something to keep in mind. Also, when you go to the 5 channel configurations, because Aural 3D is predominantly all wall height mounted, with the exceptions of the voice of God channel, which is always ceiling mounted, and that's the one that's labeled as green. And then on the 3 row, you can have ceiling mounted for your front and your rear, but you have to have your ceiling and your front center height channel enabled. So some limitations there. And I called Denon about this on their support line. And what they told me was, yeah, that's correct. Some of these modes won't let you either do a ceiling speaker or they won't let you do a wall speaker, and you'll just have to pick the closest match. And that's okay. It will functionally work. So if you only have ceiling speakers, but you want to use that 5-speaker configuration for Aural 3D, you can have a row in the front that are ceiling mounted, row in the back, and your Voice of God channel or your center height speaker all in the ceiling, but you configure it in your Denon receiver as a height channel for everything but the Voice of God channel. One advantage that the 6800 has over the 4800 and the 3800 is you don't have to disable your rear surrounds or surround back speakers in order to do all these immersive channels that we show in the table here. But if we went back to those other models, you would. With those, anything over 2 rows would require you to disable your surround back speakers. And the last thing I'll point out here is when it comes to your amplifiers, like I said, you'll need to pick one pair. If you go beyond 11 channels, you'll have to pick one pair that's going to be powered externally. That's usually your front speakers, but it doesn't have to be. It could be something like your front wide or your surround back channels that are used for that. In doing so, when you get this all configured up, let's say you used your external amplifier for your front speakers. After going through the setup wizard, you'll find out that the pre-out only is selected for front, but it will be speaker and pre-out for everything else. What it does is, if you're using the internal amplifiers, it still has the pre-out active. If you want to disable that amplifier that's built in to the receiver, which cuts down on noise and distortion, you will change that to pre-out only instead of speaker plus pre-out for each channel or channel pair that you would like to use an external amplifier for. Very simple. So I hope this helps you in your planning. I recommend going through this thought process before you go through the setup wizard, and therefore you're going to make the right decisions when you configure up through the wizard. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Be sure to hit that bell notification so you're notified when the next video is posted. Until then, keep evolving your audio experience.